We're excited to talk some WNBA today. We've got the NBA seemingly wrapping up for a week and a half or so until the finals start. And after I attended Caitlin Clark and the Fever's first win on Friday night here in LA, I'm ready to deep dive into this WNBA season. And who better to bring on the pod to talk all things WNBA than the man we got our early WNBA education from last season, Calvin Wetzel. But before I continue, I'd just like to give a quick shout out to our sponsor. Today's podcast is presented by Props.cash. We 100% could not do what we do without Props.cash. So if you think you're ready to level up your prop betting game, use code PTM at signup to get 25% off your first month. Excited to have Calvin back on the podcast. Calvin is all over the podcast world. You can find him on the Coast to Coast podcast with Karina, covering men's basketball in general. And he can also be found on the Bet She Wins podcast, which covers betting on all women's sports overall. Calvin, welcome back to the show. How's it going?
Hey, good to be with you guys. That was a fun time last year. I remember you guys were just getting into it. It's really cool that you guys got into it a year ago, like before all the huge rush of Caitlin Clark people joining the WNBA bandwagon now. But yeah, I'm glad to be back on here this year. It's a fun time.
I'm still upset. I there's still a record out there on YouTube of me calling Asia Wilson Aja Wilson in that podcast. So I'm still trying to live that down, and hopefully that gets put away somewhere. But yeah, so excited to have you back on the pod, and yeah, this WNBA season's been awesome.
Yeah, it really has. It's been a great start.
I remember our podcast from last year, and you were imparting some wisdom on us about Kelsey Mitchell and her home road splits and how she doesn't like. You remember that? How she doesn't like to play on the road.
I think that one hit that day, if I remember correctly.
It did.
I think it hit that day and the entire rest of the season. So we made a lot of money off of that one bit of knowledge. So we're hoping
shout out to Ohio State, by the way, Kelsey Mitchell.
Yeah.
Here you go, Tim.
We're just the best.
So Tim is an expert in many sports, but this is kind of his first season diving into the W. So before we dive into your kind of,
we definitely jumped in last year, but I think you guys were honestly, before we started working together, I think you guys were part of the inspiration. I was like, I feel like there's a market here. Nobody's really touching it. And then I didn't want to go at it alone. And then I saw you guys were doing it, and then Props put it in, and I was like, all right, cool. And dude, it's been so much fun. Like, we found the best player in Las Vegas the last couple weeks, just going absolutely ham. And then the last night we had a 10-point builder. She scored 31. Like, that kind of stuff's really, really fun that you're only getting early on in the league.
So Calvin, what
shout out to you guys? That's all you.
What advice would you give to like a new better in this space, like overall?
Yeah, it depends kind of where your starting point is, but I think a lot of new bettors are coming in with a starting point of having bet on basketball before and on the NBA maybe, and just not specifically this league. And with that, I would say like the biggest thing is it's different. Like it is pro basketball, obviously, but like if you're used to the NBA with so much load management, it's an 82 game season, you bet on someone and then someone else gets ruled out like last minute and it throws off all your bets. Like, obviously injuries play a part in the WNBA, but it's different because the season's only half as long. Obviously there's only 12 teams. Like, people are going all in. So there's not a whole lot of this whole like load management aspect. So, and there are obviously just a lot of other differences as well. It's really important, I think, like what you guys did, to sort of get to know the league, kind of get to know like the landscape of the different teams and players. And obviously a lot of that stuff translates from the NBA to the WNBA, just in terms of like basketball betting skills, but there's a lot of differences as well. So start watching and start, following the league and pick up everything you can, just information wise, and go from there.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I was looking at some of the play. I was looking at Marina Mabry and just the minutes she's played so far this season. I think she's averaging around 35 and a half minutes a game. I was just thinking, it's a 40-minute game, right? So she's basically playing the entire game. She's coming out for like little 1 or 2 minute stretches at a time. So that's, like you said, that's like a playoff-like atmosphere for the entire season for a lot of these players. And it really makes, I don't know, it makes it easier in my mind to find bets and not get burned by things you can't control. So I think that's a really good point that you raised there. All right, so early thoughts on the season, right? We came into the season, it was Caitlin Clark, Fever. going to win it all. Everybody was excited about that. Obviously, the Aces and the Liberty are still kind of two of the top teams, but the Fever have started 1-6, right? And even the Storm started 3-3, right? So two of the teams that were projected to be top 6 finishers, they've struggled a little out of the gate. So what are kind of your initial impressions from the early season in terms of which teams are hot and which ones are disappointing?
I think it's just a good reminder. I mean, with both those teams, that everything takes time, and like even the Aces, who won the last 2 championships, like when they first started building this dynasty, like they didn't have success right away. It took them some time, and now this core has been together for several years, and now you have the Storm, just brought in all stars over the offseason, but they lost their first 2 games. It's going to take them some time to gel. The Liberty a year ago sort of formed their quote unquote super team, and they didn't start off the season as strong, and then really picked it up as the season went on. And then obviously, like with Caitlin Clark and the Fever, everyone was so high on her, but at the end of the day, like she's a rookie. She's not going to win the MVP. Like that's not how it works in pretty much any sport. Victor Wembanyama didn't come in. He was awesome. He didn't come in and win the MVP, right? Like it always takes some time. There's always an adjustment period. And so it's a good reminder just to kind of, pump the brakes on some of the new players and new teams. Like they'll get there, but it's not going to be just the first week of the season that they're going to be as dominant as maybe as people thought.
Yeah, it's a fair point. I would say even just comparing those two teams though, like the Storm are assembled with a bunch of veterans, right? So their ability to probably close that gap sooner, you can see it already, is going to happen probably faster than a team like the Fever, who are super young, super talented. Got a lot of great talent over the last 3 draft classes, but like you said, they're young and they're going to take some time to get it together. So, all right, cool. Let's dive into today's slate. Let's actually start with the Fever since we're talking about them. So we got the run back of the Sparks Fever. Sparks are 1-4 on the season. Fever are 1-6. Fever are -5.5 in this game. Totals 165.5. So let's just start with the game. Always good to start with the game script before we dive into some player props. What do you like in this game, Calvin?
Yeah, in terms of spread and total, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Spread, I would probably lean the Sparks, but it's pretty close. I'd probably rather hit the total here and take an under. These two teams played several days ago from last week. This is a rematch, and they hit the under. I think Fever unders in general have done pretty well this year, just because, again, I think books were sort of reacting in a lot of markets, including the totals, to thinking that Caitlin Clark was going to come in and take this league by storm or whatever, and turn this offense into a juggernaut, and it didn't happen right away. So they've hit a couple overs, but for the most part, the Fever offense has not been as good as sportsbooks or a lot of new fans maybe thought they would. And then the Sparks as well are probably, they've actually impressed me. They've been better than I thought they would, but I thought they would be the worst offense in the league, and maybe they've been the second or third worst offense in the league. It's still not a good offense, and they're also without Leja Clarendon, starting point guard tonight. So just another reason that I would probably, if I was going to go with side or total, my best look would be the under. Right now I'm seeing it at like 165.5. I would take an under there. It went under in their first matchup last week.
Yeah, I think they that game was 78-73, the Fever. So significantly under the total 165.5. So I think that's a good look as well. I mean, Caitlin Clark's due to bust out one of these games, right? Like she's going to have one of these 25-point games, but we'll see. Maybe not tonight. All right. So who do you like from a player prop standpoint in this one?
So I have been talking about, kind of fading Caitlin Clark in all of this, but I do actually like her over assists in this game at 6.5. She didn't have a very good debut, 3 assists, 10 turnovers, the first double-digit turnover debut in league history. And, everyone's talking about that. Since then, passing wise, she's actually been pretty good. She's been over this line in 4 of her last 5. And the one that she wasn't was the game where she got hurt for a little bit and left the game, ended up coming back later, but missed several minutes. And so her minutes were down. Her minutes have been, around in the lower to mid 30s, but she was at around 27 in that game, and she was on pace to hit about 7 assists. She finished with 5. So without that injury, you could be looking at her being over this line in 5 straight. And the Sparks allow a lot of assists as well. So this is a look that I would definitely be taking Caitlin Clark over 6.5 assists.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I mean, two of the misses came against Connecticut too, right? So regardless of playing time, Connecticut's a tough team to play, and just throw out that first game of the season, right? I mean, the amount of pressure that was on her for that game was just insane. She probably didn't even know like what to do, right? Like she was just coming out, just shooting a ton of threes because that's what everybody wanted to see. But yeah, over the last 3 games, she's really settled in. So I think 6.5 assists is nice. What do you think about her rebounds tonight too? She had a season high 10 rebounds against the Sparks last time. You think she repeats with 5.5 rebounds, or?
I'm still trying to get a feel on her rebounds because it's been all over the place, and I'm probably not hitting this one either way until I sort of get a better read on it. To be honest, I mean that 10 was probably a little bit of a fluke,
Mhm.
but 5.5 does feel about right for me at this point. She's a great defensive rebounder. She never really rebounds on the offensive end. And so when you're looking at her rebounds prop, you have to look at, is the opponent a team that crashes the glass? Or are they a team that makes her miss shots? The Sparks did start the season really strong, shot making wise, but due for some regression there, which might lead to some more defensive rebound opportunities for her. But I mean, I don't think she has 10 again. I could see her getting 6 or 7, but probably staying away from this one.
Yeah, we were debating some sort of parlay on her. You could the nice thing about FanDuel this year is they've got alt lines, so we've really been going after those. So you could put Clark for 4 rebounds, which she's cleared in every game except for the 2 games against Connecticut. Again, first game of the season and lower minutes, and then you can put that with Clark 6 assists. So I don't know where those odds are right now, but last night that was putting you around like -130 or something like that. So that's another
Yeah,
way of
well,
approaching this if you want to kind of bring both of these lines down a bit.
and the other thing that FanDuel's been doing this year, which is really cool, is having more of those combo stats like you see in the NBA,
Yeah.
PRA or just rebounds, assists. So if you wanted to kind of get her assists in there, you could go with rebounds and assists, which is currently, I got FanDuel pulled up here, 12.5 at plus money, plus 100.
Yeah.
So that way, if she ends up getting 8 or 9 assists, you don't need as many rebounds to clear that line. But if she is going over rebounds, that's going to help you as well. So yeah, I would maybe look at that as another way to kind of pivot on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And a good reminder to lock in early. These lines came out over 24 hours ago. And this Caitlin Clark line, I believe, opened up at 11.5. So at minus whatever it was, but now it's plus 100, 12.5. So definitely look at FanDuel and lock those in. Try to get them the day before, not the day of, if you can.
I will say, being at the game Friday, I think we don't have the ability to track. Maybe Calvin might know this. Are potential assists tracking a thing in WNBA?
I wish they were. They're not. Occasionally, when there's one that I get really curious about, I kind of go through some film and do it myself. I haven't done it with Caitlin Clark.
So I was at the game Friday night, and I could tell you there was a ton of potential assists that her teammates didn't convert on. So I love that assist play. Just watching it in person, I think that's great. It was like even my wife commented on it. She's like, she's an awesome passer, but like, nobody is converting on any of these assists. It's crazy. So yeah, I'm into that play tonight.
Even better.
Yeah,
even better.
That's awesome. All right. Anybody else on the Fever that you like in this game, Calvin?
I don't have any other props on the Fever, but in this game, I actually do have another one. It was on FanDuel, and it looks like they took it down, but I still see it on some other sports books. Bet Rivers has it. Bet 365. Cameron Brink over 0.5 threes. It's basically regular juice, -110, -115. Wow. Kurt Miller has really been letting her launch. And compared to like what she did in college. And we knew that she was capable of shooting. Obviously, this isn't like some high volume big or even some, any type of high volume shooter, but we only need 1 3. That's all we need. And in this offense, she's been allowed to basically take 3 threes a game. She's shooting over 40% right now. That'll probably regress a little bit, but she only needs to shoot in the 30s to clear this at 3 threes a game. So against this Fever defense that hasn't been very good, I like Cameron Brink to get at least 1 3 tonight.
Yeah, 6 threes in the 3-point attempts in the last game. I remember one of them. She just drained a nice shot in the corner. She's got a good shot. So I think this is a great look. Very sneaky.
Love
All
that.
right.
I love
Anybody
that.
else in this game?
Yeah, no, I don't think I have anything else in this game.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Aaliyah Boston is starting to come back to form. What is maybe you could tell us, what's the deal with Nalissa Smith? Is she in or out of the starting lineup now?
Well, the last game she was out, so we'll see if that was a one-game thing to kind of get her going, or if that's more of a long-term trend. I guess we'll find out tonight. So I'm not sure, but I'm going to be monitoring that. As soon as that is something to monitor though for people hitting props, because I don't think we have Nalissa Smith props up today, but the other day we had her props up, and then when that news dropped that she was not in the starting lineup, some books still had her props up for like another 5-10 minutes, and you could hit those under. So I hit her under points and her under rebounds the other day. She went under both. Tammy Fack Bentley has been playing really well, surprisingly, for the Fever. She's been like, we have all been talking about the youth of the Fever, the last two number 1 picks, and Alyssa, the number 2 pick the year before that, and then like a 31-year-old who's been out of the league for 5 years comes in and is the biggest story for them, like we all thought. But as long as she continues to play well, Nalissa Smith might have trouble finding playing time because Temi has been great. So it's definitely something to monitor. But yeah, last game was her first game out of the starting lineup. So we'll see what they do tonight.
Yeah, it looks like Prize Picks has her points and ESPN Bet has her rebounds. So
Okay.
8.5 rebounds. If that's right,
I would
that-
lean under on that. I would probably, because Temi didn't really do anything to sacrifice that starting spot. She played great in her first start last game. So I would be willing to put money on them continuing to go to her more than Nalissa Smith, and then if they go back to Nalissa Smith, well, then you can pivot in the next game. But I think that's a good look.
Yeah, I mean 8.5 rebounds, even if she does start, is not a sure thing for
Yeah.
her, right? She's only
Yeah.
cleared that in 2 games this season. So we'll keep an eye on that one, see if it opens up on other books, or if you have ESPN Bet, maybe try an under there. All right, let's go to the Mercury Sun. 2 other exciting teams. Mercury are 3-2 on the season. Sun are 5-0. I believe they're the only undefeated team left in the league. Sun are minus 8.5 at home. Totals 166.5. You got any looks on the game plays here? Spread or total?
Yeah, I did hit the Sun at -7. It looks like it's minus, like you said, -8. Most books are around there. I would still lean towards them at that point, just because the Mercury have been great, but they're due for a little bit of shooting regression. They've been shooting the ball extremely well. The Sun are on the opposite end. They're somehow undefeated, shooting terribly from 3, and that's not going to continue either. And aside from that, the Mercury already without Brittany Griner this year. Now they're without Beck Allen tonight, who has been starting at the 4 for them. So their front court is going to be tested even more against a really tough Sun front court with Alyssa Thomas, Tawana Bonner, Bree Jones, not the team you want to be shorthanded in the front court against. And then also Shug Sutton, their backup guard, is doubtful. So just depth in general going to be really tested. The Mercury are not a very deep team. They have a great starting lineup when they're healthy. Not a lot of depth. Basically, they have, when you look at their contracts, it's funny. They have like 6 highly paid players, and then 7 on down is just like vet minimums or rookies. Like that's what this team is made up of. So
It's a common
without
thing
their
in
depth,
Phoenix, right? Both
What's that?
NBA and WNBA, very top heavy.
yeah,
there.
exactly. Well, it's the same owner, so
Exactly.
it's a
There you go.
philosophy. And so when those injuries start to stack up on a team like that, it has an even bigger impact than maybe when the injuries start to stack up on a deeper team. So I would probably looking to fade them tonight and go with the Sun on the spread.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. The Sun have just been figuring out ways to get it done. Kalia Copper's been pretty amazing so far this season. She's really been kind of the standout player there. You have any player props in this game?
Yeah, I do like her over threes. I like this Phoenix team. They have really, really leaned into like modern 3-point revolution, and especially with Brittany Griner hurt, just been playing this 5 out, and Kalia Copper keeps going over her threes line. Diana Taurasi keeps going her over threes line. They keep hanging them at 2.5. Sophie Cunningham is at 1.5 right now. It looks like it's really juiced over. But without Beck Allen, I think Sophie should be in the starting lineup, and she's been getting mid to upper 20s minutes off the bench anyway. So honestly, I would probably look at all three of those 3-point overs. They're just launching right now. This whole offense is just threes on threes on threes. And especially without Beck Allen, like I said, like these players are going to need to play a lot of minutes in this game when they're shorthanded. So, I mean, if you wanted to do some type of like parlay of all of them to hit 2+ threes or something like that, this SGP on FanDuel, however you can bet on the healthy Mercury wings to hit threes, that's what I'd be looking at.
Yeah, it makes sense. And Connecticut's actually giving up the fourth most 3-point attempts to opposing guards so far this season as well. So it is a maybe just intentional, maybe because there's such a force down low with Alyssa Thomas. Other teams are having a hard time scoring in the paint, but I don't know. I think this is a really good spot. Sophie Cunningham, I almost jumped on that yesterday. For 2 threes, it was -108 on FanDuel. And that's since, gone, I guess, with the news of Beck Allen, -155 on DraftKings, -182 on FanDuel now. So I still think it's a good look, but again, you probably have to parlay that with something else to get it. So
yeah, that's why I might look at the parlay with some of the other ones. It looks like you could do 2+ on all three of them. And let me see what that would be if you did that. If you built that out, that would be +122. If you did 2+ for Diana Taurasi, Kalia Copper, and Sophie Cunningham, that's +122. And then you don't even need that third three from any of them. So that might be a look that I would look at.
I love that. I mean, let's just talk about Taurasi for a second. She's just incredible. Like the level that she's still playing at her age is just, she looks like, she could play for another 5 years. Is this her last season, or is she going to keep running it for a few more years?
She hasn't said. I think some people think it might be her last season, but again, like you said with her, I mean, it almost feels like Tom Brady or something, one of those players who could still play at a high level, at least offensively at 45 or 46. So who knows with her? I could see it being her last year, or I could see her continuing to play for a few more years. It's just really hard to say, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think they have the foundation to potentially make a run this year, especially when Griner gets back. I think I read she was out of the walking boot and hopefully be back in the next week or so. But at the same point, I don't know if her presence will actually help this team, right? I think she's going to change the flow of the game very much for them. Do you think she's a plus or a minus at this point for this team?
Brittany Griner?
Yeah.
Well, maybe in the first game or two, it'll take them some time to get their rhythm with her, because, like you said, it's going to change the way they're playing dramatically when all of a sudden you have this big post threat who you insert into this sort of modern 5-out spaced offense. But long term, definitely a plus. Like once they figure out the chemistry and the rhythm by the end of the season, I definitely think she'd be a plus. And also, like defensively, just having a rim protector back there, I think it'd be huge for them as well. So, like I definitely would kind of wait and see how that looks for a game or two, but I would buy into the Mercury, long term this season even more once she's back.
Yeah. So that's really good advice from a betting standpoint. When Griner does come back, maybe lay off the Mercury for a few games just to get a feel for how that team looks, because that is a very big change to their team. But yes, in the long run, that definitely puts them in a possible scenario to win this year. And maybe if Taurasi wins the championship, that could be it for her, I would imagine, right?
I think
Wasn't
if they
for
won the
Tom Brady.
championship, she would have to. Yeah, she would have to walk off into the sunset, right?
I don't know. Well, yeah, I think Tom Brady might have wished he walked away. It was a sloppy ending for him. All right, let's go to the next one. We got the Storm at the Sky. Storm are 3-3. Sky are 2-2. Sky are getting, I believe, 2.5 points at home. Totals 166 again in this one. What do you like here, Calvin, for the game or any player props?
This is one, on the spread wise, I feel like I'm gonna regret saying it because the Sky keep proving me wrong. I thought this was gonna be one of the 2 worst teams this season, along with the Sparks, and they've been playing really well. They beat the Liberty on the road. They almost beat the Sun, but I still lean Storm here, -3 or -2.5 or 3.5. like you said, like they didn't come out of the season, come out of the gate super strong this season with what they built with all of those all-stars that they brought in, but they've been playing a lot better lately. That last game that they won by like 32, I think it was. It feels like the Storm are starting to put some pieces together, even just a couple weeks into the season. There's just such a vast talent gap here in the Sky. I do feel like Teresa Weatherspoon in her first year as head coach has the Sky playing way above their talent level right now. Like the vibes are great, the culture is great. They're playing hard. That home opener was lit the other day. Everyone showed up. So we'll see. And I say this as I'm wearing this Sky shirt on this podcast. But I do lean Storm here. This just feels like a short line. I mean, you could even win this on like -3 on, late game fouls or whatever. They don't even really have to pull away too much. So I lean that. I do love the over though. The one thing that Teresa Weatherspoon has been doing has been really pushing the ball and trying to beat people down the floor. They've been like leaking out a lot, and kind of getting these 1-on-0 fast breaks. The Sky they've been going over in a lot of their games because of that. Their team total over, or like even when they lose. And the Storm, they're like we said, they didn't come out strong, but the biggest thing that they've been sort of figuring out, they were okay on the defensive end in those first couple games, but their offense, they weren't making anything. And in these last couple of games, they've been putting the offense together a lot better. I think they scored 100 in that other game. So I would definitely, this line has gone up a lot. It opened at 161.5. I wasn't quite quick enough, so I got a 162.5, but I'm seeing 165.5 right now. And I would still lean over at that. I think this probably hits upper 160s.
Yeah. I mean, Jewel Lloyd's been, I would say, inconsistent for her. It's hard to say that when she's put up a 24 and a 32-point game. But she's got that potential to break out any game. So yeah, I think they're gonna put this one together. I also like the -2.5. They looked really good last game. All right, who do you like from a player prop standpoint? Anybody in this game?
Yeah. So, well, there was one that FanDuel took down, but I'll just say this as for listeners to keep an eye. To your point earlier about like getting on this stuff early, like the day before. If you keep an eye on opening lines the day before, sometimes they hang props that are just a straight up mistake. And I don't know if you see this in the NBA or not as much, but they hung Elizabeth Williams 1.5 threes. She's never
Yeah.
made a 3 in her career. I don't know who it was supposed to be. It wasn't supposed to be Elizabeth Williams.
They
So
probably meant Courtney Williams, who's no longer with
who's
the
no
team,
longer
right?
with the Sky.
Exactly.
That's
So,
a good bet. I was trying to figure out who they meant because it wasn't anyone on the current team, because they had everyone on the current team already listed anyway. But yeah, that's just a good
that's
reminder.
the
to-
Elizabeth Williams chart for threes over the last 30 years.
For her whole career, she's attempted 2 ever. Neither of them
Wow.
went in. So keep an eye, when they first open. Obviously, that's not there anymore. They fixed it. But in terms of what's still there, I do like Dana Evans under assists, even though it's really juiced now. It's at -160 on FanDuel. I think you could get a little better line at some other books if you shop around. But I would still take that at 4.5. With Diamond DeShields healthy, she doesn't get quite as many ball handling opportunities, and DeShields has kind of been in and out of the lineup, but she should be good to go tonight. And Marina Mabry is taking a lot of ball handling opportunities as well. I also like Marina Mabry overs in general, so I would probably look at like her PRA over. It looks like right now that is at 29.5. She should be in the 30s, so that's another one that I would look at. And that one's regular juice. Yeah, you see her chart there. She's hit 30 in all 4 games, so I would take her over 29.5 PRA as well.
Yeah, and she's you're gonna get that at 28.5 on DraftKings, it looks like still. And for
Shop around.
-120, so good value. And like I said earlier, 35.4 minutes per game. So I think she's in the top 10 in terms of minutes per game. They lost how many players? They lost Alana Smith, they lost Courtney Williams. Did they lose anybody else in the offseason?
They lost Kalia Copper to the Mercury.
Oh, Copper, yeah, right. So they lost 3 of their top 5 scorers or something like that, right? It's crazy.
Right. And the players that they brought in they didn't really bring in anyone of that caliber. They brought in a lot of like depth pieces. So Marina Mabry has become the default like alpha on this team based on what they build over the offseason. And you're seeing it in her numbers and in her volume and in her minutes.
Yeah, she's attempting field goal attempts 16, 17, 13, and 18 field goal attempts per game. That's a lot for a 40-minute game. So, all right, cool. Anybody else in this game that you like?
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's pretty much all I'm looking at.
All right, very nice. You guys have anything else to add for WNBA or any questions for Calvin before we move on?
No.
All right.
No, not for me.
All right, cool. Well, thanks for those picks. Those are awesome. Let's talk briefly about the NBA. So we know you're a fan of all things basketball, right, Calvin? I know you. I think you in your profile on X, you said something about basketball binge watcher or something like that. So, right, which I think would be a good way my wife would describe me as well. So what are your thoughts on the NBA playoffs so far and kind of the teams that are left, and where do you see this going over the next couple weeks?
Yeah, I do watch as much basketball as possible, men's, women's, content wise, and betting wise, I'm more so on the women's side, but like college, pro, whatever, international, I'll watch any basketball I can. And so I've been watching the NBA. I mean, I'm very impressed with what the Mavericks have been doing because the Timberwolves felt like a team of destiny, and all of a sudden they just ran into a wall in the Mavericks this series. No one's ever come back from down 3-0, so we'll see. But I still think that Timberwolves team is really building something for the future, and Ant is turning into a bona fide superstar. But right now, it's going to be the Mavericks and the Celtics, and that's going to be an incredible, incredible series. I can't believe that series between the Celtics and the Pacers, how close it was for a sweep. That was the least dominant sweep probably that I've ever seen.
I've never seen a team at the end of a game just like turn into a completely different team like the Pacers. Like 3 minutes left of each of those games, they just couldn't handle the ball, couldn't make a good shot, didn't play defense. It was insane. They played so well with so much energy, especially with their star out. Very disappointed. I kind of wanted to see one more of those. I mean, I didn't see any way that Boston wasn't going to win, but was an amazing comeback from Boston in all of those games. But yeah, crazy.
Indy didn't score a point in the final 3 minutes and 33 seconds of that game last night. So they had 102 with 3.5 left and did not score a single point. So that was wild. Or sorry, Indy. Indy. So they were dominating. I don't know what happened.
Well, I could tell
like
you,
Tom said, a young team.
Yeah, exactly. So they're the fever. It must be an Indiana thing.
Yep,
they're the fever of the NBA. I will say last night was the last time I'm ever betting on Miles Turner.
You've said that before, though.
I've said it before. I saw projections having him
at this time.
Yeah, having him grab 10 rebounds. I was like, all right, I'm going to put him in a parlay, alt him all the way down to 6. It's safe. He just put up 10 boards last game. Guy came out and just put up 3 rebounds immediately and then couldn't grab another board. Like, I think he grabbed one more the rest of the game. So, so I'm done with him. He's on the ban list.
All right, officially this time.
Officially, yeah. Him and DeJounte Murray.
Okay.
All right. Any other looks at you guys, Tom? I think you said.
Yeah, I got a few here. Real quick. I am excited to see the Luka Porzingis rematch in the finals. Like, he came into town, Luka drove him out of town, and now they get to meet in the finals. That'll be fun to see.
And Kyrie back in Boston too.
Yes, true. A lot of good, and we'll have 9 days to talk about it too. All the talking heads we'll have a field day with that stuff. All right, here's what I got. So I think arguably the best player on the Wolves this series has been Naz Reid. So I'm looking at some Naz props here. His minutes are up. We talked about this on Friday with Matt from Dead Prez Picks. I think you probably see 30 minutes. He's played like 29 and 31 over the last 2 games. I think he's good for 30 minutes. He's become a big part of the rotation here. His point line's 12.5 points. He's done this. When he's played 28 plus minutes this season, he's cleared in 18 of 20 games. When he's played 30 minutes, 13 of 15. And if you want to bring those down, because some of those games were without Cat, if we just put him in the range, put him between 28 and 32 minutes, which he's good for tonight, Dave.
What has he been? He's been playing 31 and 29. He's really been taking all of Cat's minutes at the end of the game.
Yes.
So what are you saying?
28 to 32 minutes. 10 all 10 games that he's played in that 4-minute range right there. I think he's good for this. He's been their best player. He's been in their closing rotations. They need, like you nailed it on the head, Dave. They need him out there instead of Cat. Cat's a defensive liability for them. So he's going to get that run. Love Nas in this spot to try to get a gentleman's sweep at least in this series.
What do you think, Calvin? You like that look for tonight?
I like that look. That's a lot of green on that screen. 10 green bars. I can't argue with that.
There we go.
Yeah, I think Naz Reid is becoming one of my favorite players in the NBA. I just like
awesome.
I like his energy. I like the versatility of his game. He's got an inside game. He can get obviously bomb from three. He's been doing that, and in this series, he's shown to be a pretty good defender as well. So I think he's got a big future. Maybe we see Cat move somewhere in the offseason and Naz Reid slides into the starting role. What do you think?
As long as it's not to the Knicks, I'm fine with it.
All right, you got another look in this game, Tom?
Yeah, we got to go with Luka. We've been doing these single player SGPs, and they've been pretty successful. So I got a couple different ways you can play Luka. Obviously, close out at home, game 4. Luka's going to see big minutes. He's been seeing big minutes all series. If you just look at his numbers, click on Minnesota, you can see his points have been great. We're going to bring his points down to 28 for these parlays. I think we're pretty safe at 28 points there. He's done that in 29 of 35 games this season when he's played 40-plus minutes. So that's our baseline for these builders. Then we can play with the rebounds and assists as you whatever level of risk you're comfortable with. At 6 rebounds, 100% hit rate, 35 of 35 games this season when he's played 40 minutes, and 7 assists, 31 of 35. That's 89% hit rate. That's your base level one. That's minus 115, 28, 6, and 7. I think that's pretty money for Luka tonight. You can bring that up, go 28, 7, and 7. You get plus 106. You can go 28, 7, and 8. Those are, interestingly, 29 of 35 games. That's the hit rate for all of those. 28 points, 7 rebounds, 8 assists, 83% hit rate individually on all 3 of those. That's plus 135 on FanDuel. So love Luka for one of these SGPs tonight.
It's hard to argue with Luka. He's pretty cold-blooded this series. He just loves making Gobert look silly.
He does.
Dude, that was just cold, man. He just drained that 3 and just screamed in the guy's face.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't seen something like that in a while. I love that.
I got a sneaky one. I got actually 2 sneaky ones here. Unless you guys have anything you wanted to add?
No, keep going.
No. All right. Maxi Kleber's back tonight, right? Lively's out. So let's look at Maxi Kleber without Lively. I think being up 3-0 in this series, I think they're going to want to get Kleber some run in this game to try to get him some game action. They're going to need him in that Boston series. They need his 3-point shooting in that series. So I think they're going to want to get him back involved, even though he's coming off of injury. I think you do see him get some decent run here. Just look at his, if you just click in games without Lively and with Gafford, Dave, you can kind of get a sense for what the kind of rotation he'll see tonight. Look at it like his RA. I think it's not. I'm sure these lines will be out on some other books later today. So you got some nice hit rates there in RA. Just straight rebounds, also really nice. So just a spot I wanted to call out here. Don't want to spend too much time on it in case it's only ends up being available on BetMGM and nowhere else. But just wanted to call that out. The other one, this one is from my man Tim Trad over here. Look at Gafford assists without Lively and with Luka. You can actually get this on FanDuel. Daniel Gafford 1 assist. It's juicy at minus 225, but you stick that with a builder. I mean, you probably got an NHL something you could stick a Gafford assist on. But yeah, look, there you go. Let's ride with a Gafford assist here.
So Calvin, Tim is a huge fan of the big man assist. It all started with Mason Plumlee, and and it's spiraled.
Speaking of, have you seen the shit they're talking about this draft class? They've compared this new draft class to the 2013, which is an absolute travesty considering that the 22nd pick of that first round is when we were blessed with Mason Plumlee. So there's a lot of players in that draft that were solid. But we got one of the greatest centers of all time, 2 career three-pointers. But look, I mean, I think it was 2 years ago now. I think 68 straight games or something like that. We cashed 1+ assist with him, and the books caught on because he's an absolute stud. But yeah, I love this. With Lively out though, man. Lively was such a massive piece for them, so it's going to be interesting. I like that Max look too with all those minutes they got to fill.
Yeah.
They could use a Nas Reed on their side.
Yes, they could.
Absolutely.
Everybody could use a Nas Reed.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So I think that does it for tonight's NBA slate. Let's hit up NHL real quick before we let Calvin jump off. Tim, what do you like on NHL tonight?
Well, we have one game tonight. I know you guys are the massive Rangers fans. We have New York Rangers playing the Florida Panthers. This is game 4. This is absolutely a must-win game. It's in Florida. Florida has to win. I do think that they'll pull this one off. And what we're going to look at here is, let's start with points. I was going to get some shots like we did last night, but this series has been completely different from the Edmonton-Dallas series. And speaking of Dallas, if Dallas goes through tonight to the finals and the Stars, which also are in Dallas, the hockey team, go to the finals, it'll be the first time since like 1993 that 2 franchises are in the finals at the same arena. So they'd be playing NBA finals and NHL finals in the same arena, which was pretty fucking cool.
Very cool.
Could have been the Rangers in the Knicks, man. Could have been the Rangers in the Knicks.
They did not want to do that though, apparently.
Yeah, apparently.
So the series has had 3 games finished so far. New York's up 2-1, but the last 2 games have gone into overtime. First 2 games, we talked about this earlier. The scoring's usually higher and then kind of drops through the series. This one had 2 3-goal games and then a 9-goal game back to back. So I don't think we have another 9-goal game tonight, but Florida needs to shoot the fuck out of the puck because they need to win this game, and they're going to be sending them. So what we're going to look at is Gustav Forsling. This is a leg you can use in any builder. And actually, what's really funny is I put him in a cross-sport parlay with Caitlin Clark and Nas Reed. So you guys, we were kind of on the same page this morning. But look at his shots, not his points in this one. I do like him to score a point, but he has covered 2+ shots in 8 straight. And this is not something he's normally in the regular season. This has been a playoff thing for him. If you look at the head-to-head, see how that's that little bit of red there? You'll be like, oh, no. Look at the last 3 games with him in the head-to-head. When they've played the Rangers, he has completely come on as an offensive threat. So I like him 2 shots. That's the only shot play I like tonight. You can move that into anything. I paired that with Caitlin Clark 6 assists and Nas Reed to score 10 points and got a +174. So if you're like, I don't know which game I want to watch tonight, and you just want to bet a little bit on each sport, I love that. And then switch over to points for me, and let's talk about our guy, Vincent Trocheck. If the Rangers score, he is involved. And I think he's undervalued a lot tonight at -150 for a single point. So he's a good leg. Yeah, look, I guess DraftKings and MGM have him priced a little bit more. He's -154 right now on FanDuel. Mm-hmm. And so if the Rangers score, he's involved. He's had 2 points. Go instead of head-to-head, go to like the last 5, just so you can kind of see what's going on recently for his points. There you go. So either doesn't score points or he does. He does too. I like him for 1 point tonight. You can hit him straight up at 150. It's a little bit juicy. But what I ran was him for a point and then Carter Verhaeghe, who has absolutely exploded in the playoffs for Florida. And if you take 1 point each on them, you're looking at about 147 plus 147. So my smack tonight is Trocheck and Verhaeghe, 1 point each. You have to worry about shots. You have to worry about scoring. Again, you can score a hockey goal and still the second person that passed it prior to the assist still gets an assist. So there's 3 players that get a point on every hockey goal, up to 3. They can't score, unfortunately, at the same time because they're opposite sides. We love it when you score 2 players at once. But at plus 147, I think that's great value. And then, like I said, the Forsling, the 2+ shots on goal, it's -188. So feel free to work that into maybe a Gafford assist if you want. You can use that as a leg in any sort of builder. We love the cross sport. And so the other play I'm sending out is Clark 6 assists, Forsling 2+ shots on goal, Nas Reed just 10 points. I think he's going to play like 27, 28 minutes, like you said. Sir. I like him for 15. just took him down to 10. I love not sweating. Now, there are a lot of undervalued players in this. We don't need to go through a ton of it. But if this game does explode for another, 9-goal game like they did last time, Sam Reinhart has been involved. Carter Verhaeghe's got 4 straight points, 8 straight times covering. Kachuk is always involved. There's a bunch of players in there that you can work in. And then Lafreniere, we talked about him for the Rangers. He's been really showing up in the playoffs. So there's a lot of value on him. I just want to see some go through, and this could easily be a 2-1 kind of more of a boring game as far as scoring. So I'm going with just those 2 most likely. Verhaeghe has been out of control, and Trocheck is the quarterback for which they score. They have Panarin and they have Zib that are both priced a lot higher. And I think Trocheck is probably more likely than the 2 of those. So you're getting a lot of value there.
Beautiful.
And I believe that's all for the hockey tonight.
You have to be the only
I think Florida wins
in the world who has paired Gustav Forsling, Caitlin Clark, and Naz Reid into a play tonight.
I love it.
Hey, buddy, if it pays, I don't care.
Hours.
Yeah. But after
that plus 174,
yeah.
What's that?
No, I was saying after this pod, there'll be plenty of people with you. So I love that.
Yeah, I'm gonna go place that.
And I mean, at plus 174, I'm getting long odds on a. If this was the same game, the you remember how we were talking about last night? I showed you when I was putting same games together, the scores were like the numbers weren't going correctly. Then you put 2 of the same odds from different games and you get better numbers.
Yep.
We shouldn't talk about that on here because then they'll change it. But we're getting plus 174 at like minus 140 implied hit rates. So even if you don't watch the games, just put the bets in, get that money.
Right,
you don't
we're
care.
locking it in.
All right.
Nothing I love more than a good sicko bet.
Yes, sir.
And then put Gafford in there or pair him with any of these and have a party. Because that big man will have at least 1 assist.
Let's go.
Yes, all right. All right.
Cool. That's
Nice
it for
work
me.
today, guys. Calvin, awesome having you on as always. Thanks for coming back. Hopefully we can
nice meeting you,
get you on again some point this WNBA season. Tim, pleasure as always. Nice work, boys. I think we got quite a few bets here that we can make some money on tonight. So lock them in and enjoy the games, and let's all make some money.
Hell yeah. See you guys.
Thank you.